What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to talk about the thermal nerf that happened actually a couple weeks ago, but I just never got around to covering it, mainly just because I didn't have any pre-patch footage saved up of this, and I didn't realize how significant of a change this was, because I don't really use thermal sights. But I was reminded of this change, so I decided to go back and cover this for you guys, because it was a very significant change to the thermal sniper scope. Now, like I said, I didn't have any pre-patch footage, so I just searched up on YouTube for some pre-patch thermal sniper gameplay, and I got one from Aculite here. I'm just going to show a couple really brief clips to kind of show what it looked like pre-patch. Of course, I will leave that link down below if you want to check out the full video and see it in action. But a few things to notice here. That enemy is at about 300 meters. It's almost exactly 300 meters away. And you can see that they are glowing bright white. They are super easy to pick out, even at 300 meters. You will spot that immediately. Also, the image is quite clear, and you can see the buildings are really clearly defined at that point. So this right here is a great example of why people loved using thermal sniper scopes pre-patch, because all you had to do was aim down sight and sort of scan an area, and you'd be picking out targets left and right that you otherwise probably would have never spotted without that thermal scope. And this was the primary reason that Cold-Blooded was such an important perk to have early on in the game's life cycle, because a lot of people were running this thermal sight on their sniper rifles. But now let's bring it to present day and see what this looks like post-patch. I set myself up in the same location, and I set my dummy account up in the same location. And this is what you see in that situation. And keep in mind, the glass is broken there, so this isn't like there's a pane of glass in the way so it changes how this looks. This is the exact same situation here. And I do want to clarify, the dummy account that I'm using here doesn't have Cold-Blooded equipped in this clip. So not only is the enemy player no longer glowing, they're actually like completely blacked out. I mean, you might be able to pick them out because they're blacked out compared to the background. But it's going to be much more difficult to just scan an area at super long ranges and find people really easily. Taking this a step further though, let's have a look at the comparison side by side, pre-patch versus post-patch. And with this, you'll notice several other details are changed. Like, there's a lot less contrast here, so it's much more difficult to even see the edges of the building and all of the trees and everything and the sky. You can't see any of that sort of detail, and you'll see that they kind of added a filter over top of it as well that just kind of makes everything blurry and distorted. It's almost like white noise on a TV screen, for instance. So you can really clearly see that the effectiveness of the thermal sniper scope at long ranges has been pretty much destroyed. But let's take this a step further and have a look at how the range of your target affects how they appear in the new version of the thermal sniper scope. First thing I noticed is at right around 250 meters, this is where your character goes from being completely like blacked out to starting to have a small amount of glow on them, although not a lot of glow. It's still very easy to miss a person. If they're not moving, for instance, you could very easily just sweep over them and not notice that that was an enemy player. But as the target gets closer and closer, you can see that they start glowing and standing out a little bit more. And based on my tests here, it's right around that 200 meter threshold. That's when I would say that you can fairly easily pick out a target with a thermal sight, as long as they're not using Cold-Blooded, of course. But even then, that's kind of the threshold. Right at 200 meters, you still might miss them as you're sweeping over them, because they're not going to be glowing super bright white like pre-patch still. It's just going to be a really faint glow on the target. But then as they get closer and closer, that glow keeps brightening up, although it never does brighten all the way up to the level that we used to see before this update. So even if your target is only at like 50 meters or so, yeah, they're going to be glowing bright enough that generally you'll pick them out no problem, but they're not going to be like super white hot glowing like pre-patch. And with that, that's pretty much all there is to cover when it comes to this thermal sniper scope and the pretty big nerf that it got with the mid-season update for Season 5 a couple weeks back. As for my overall thoughts on this, I do think this is something that was worth having a look at and worth adjusting, because pre-patch, yeah, it was a little bit ridiculous that you could basically just sit up on a mountain way on the edge of the map so far away from anybody and just scan at people like 500, 600 meters away. You could just scan around and be picking out targets all over the place that you could be shooting at. That's a bit of a cheesy way to play, in my opinion, and I feel like it was just a little bit ridiculous that you could do that at such extreme ranges. So I'm glad that they do sort of have a range cap to this now. However, part of me is thinking maybe they took it a little overboard when it comes to the overall visibility of the sniper scope. Like adding that filter on top of it while also severely dropping the contrast, making it difficult to even make out your surroundings. I kind of feel like at this point, there's really not much reason to ever use a thermal sniper scope anymore. And I don't think that's a great sign of balance. I feel like there could be a happy middle ground in there somewhere, where they can still make it so it's not very effective at seeing people beyond 300 meters, but don't make it feel like you're always at a disadvantage for using a thermal sight, because honestly at this point, I kind of feel that's the case. I would rather have any of the default sniper scopes over a thermal sniper scope, because within that 200 meter effective range anyway, you generally don't need a thermal sight in order to find a target. You can see them with your own eyes without even having to aim down sight. At the very least, I feel like if a target is within 100 or 150 meters, they should be glowing white hot like they did pre-patch. That would at least give you some incentive to use a thermal sight over the basic default sight, and it might make it a worthwhile attachment, because with that would at least help you in the situations where maybe somebody's hiding in a bush, where with the naked eye you can't really see them too easily, but the thermal sight would pick them out really nicely. Or maybe a situation where they're sitting completely still and they've got amazing cover and they're only showing a few pixels of themselves. Again, in those situations, with the naked eye, you probably wouldn't see them, but with a solid thermal sight that makes them glow quite bright, it would help you pick out those few pixels that are sticking out from behind cover. If that were the case, then at least you would feel like you're getting something out of that extra attachment slot that you're taking up by using the thermal sniper scope. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion on this. I am glad they did make some kind of an adjustment to this at least. Of course, I would like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about this thermal sniper scope nerf that happened a couple weeks ago? Do you like what they did here? Do you dislike what they did? Or are you kind of in between? Do you have kind of mixed feelings? And do you think maybe there is a happy middle ground that could be found? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.